And now we're going to transition to, we gave you the history. Now we want to transition to today's state of black wrestlers, particularly in the WWE. Um, there was a lot of angst amongst fans with Carmelo Hayes, who he came out of NXT, a great young talent. He went to SmackDown as the number one. I think he was, yeah, he was the number one pick when they was doing the draft. And and Dwayne, the first thing they did with Carmelo Hayes, they put him in a match with Cody Rhodes. And we both know Cody Rhodes is not about to lose to a call up. So for ever since that booking, like Carmelo Hayes has just been, he eventually won the United States Championship, but then he was having a good reign. He had like seven, I think maybe six or seven open challenge title defenses, looked very well. And then what did they do? They took the belt off of him and gave it to Sami Zayn, who doesn't need the belt. And then they took him completely off of the WWE WrestleMania card. Another example of black talent is the recent release of Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods as the New Day. I mean, this is a staple, one of the greatest tag team tandems in history. And WWE just,
And that's another example of what I was talking about. That New Day became a comedy routine, and those brothers were actually seriously talented. So I feel like they could have done more with them as a more serious group, but they put them in a comedy role, and they got over with the comedy role. So, like I was saying, just similar to Booker T, that they were able to make that work. So yeah, just it's unfortunate what happened with them, because I feel like they could have had more productive careers if WWE had seen them as being more serious competitors and pushed them as more serious figures rather than putting them in that entertainment comedic role that a lot of black wrestlers get put in.
exactly. And to piggyback off that, for those of you who may have forgotten, Bobby Lashley, Sheldon Benjamin, MVP, they, I think during the COVID years, this was around the time I really wasn't watching wrestling, so I had to go back and do some research. But they came up with a staple called the Hurt Syndicate. Or no, they were the Hurt Business at the time. And it was kind of getting over. You know, Vince was kind of supporting it, but then by the time Triple H took over, you know, he was getting into some backstage politics and issues with MVP and Bobby Lashley, and eventually they left and went to AEW, and they changed their names to the Hurt Syndicate, and they are, Dwayne, they are completely over. I mean, whenever they come out, the fans are just, we heard people, we heard. So that's another example of Triple H just, I don't know, just give it up on black talent, not really wanting to work with black talent. There was a great talent that was in NXT. I think they came from, they were called the Rascals. I think they may have came out of TNA. But Wes Lee, a brilliant young talented guy who didn't even get a chance at the main roster. They just cut him. So now he's with AEW. And another example is Jade Cargill, who Jade, looking at her from just the aesthetics, she is a superwoman, a black superhero. And WWE just did a poor job with booking her. They put the title on her, but it was kind of by default, right? Because it was so many people were hurt. And then obviously Triple H's favorite, they had Rhea Ripley come over to SmackDown and beat her. I think Tiffany, a girl that's like half her size, Tiffany Stratton, beat her before that, and then Rhea Ripley come over there and beat her twice. So she's been, and now Dwayne, she's down to the mid card wrestling for a mid card title. So Jade is being booked poorly. And then we got to get to the biggest of them all, our brother, our Nigerian brother, Oba Femi. So Oba Femi, he has been killing it. He was killing it down at NXT, came up to the main roster, doing great. And me and Dwayne was having this conversation like, you know, all right, I mean, they're gonna. Dwayne said this first. He was like, WWE's gonna book themselves in a corner. So to the audience, there's levels to this, right? Like if you want to build up a star, kind of like if y'all remember Bill Goldberg in WCW. Bill Goldberg started out beating a bunch of just mid card guys nobody really cared about, and then he worked his way
Not,
up.
not even mid card. He was beating lower card guys when he's on the card. Nobody. He worked his way up to the mid card.
So WWE, because me and Dwayne know WWE, whether y'all agree with us or not, they like to control how they build their wrestlers. They don't want they actually punish people for getting over organically. Oba Family was so over when he hit the main roster that they had to do something with him. I mean, me and Dwayne was explaining like this man is getting attitude era pops. I mean, pops that come out when Roman Reigns comes out, when CM Punk comes out, when Seth Rollins comes out, and so they had to do something with him. But what they made the mistake, they immediately put Obafemi in a feud with Brock Lesnar, a living legend. He defeats Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, which it looked like it was going to be Brock Lesnar's retirement match. And the way what happened after he defeated Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, they had nowhere to go because it was too soon to put him for him to start challenging Roman Reigns, because Roman Reigns also just became champion by defeating CM Punk at WrestleMania. So you can't Roman has to hold the belt for a while, right? You can't just play hot potato with the belt. So Dwayne said they put themselves in a pickle because the first thing they did, Dwayne, when he beat Brock Lesnar, they put him in a bunch of open challenge matches with a bunch of nobodies, completely killing his aura. But instead of them acknowledging that they booked themselves in the corner the way, they had to bring Brock Lesnar back to attack him so they could continue the feud. So let's hear your take on this.
I would say it made no sense because, like with Goldberg, and Goldberg is the most dramatic example because of the way his run was built. But typically in pro wrestling, when you're building up a star, you do it gradually. So what WCW didn't do with Goldberg is they didn't have Goldberg beating guys at the top of the card and then bring him down to beat up the mid carders again. That made no sense. So I already knew that was a problem. Like we were talking about, they booked themselves in a corner because they didn't want Oba beating the guys at the top yet, but all they have left for him to do is to beat up the mid card guys. But you just had him beat Brock Lesnar, so it looks like he's taking a step down rather than elevating himself and taking a step up. But then the other issue is, if you wanted to do a part 2 with Brock Lesnar, why would you make the first match basically a squash match where it was one-sided, it wasn't really very competitive, and then you had Brock Lesnar retire, and to me that would have been the perfect way to send off Brock Lesnar, because if you're Brock Lesnar and you're being beaten like that, because when was the last time you ever remember Brock Lesnar being beaten that convincingly in a match? I don't think we've ever. The closest thing I could think of is when Goldberg beat him the second time, but Goldberg caught him off guard. So he didn't really beat Brock Lesnar in that way. He just caught him off guard. But we've never seen Brock Lesnar get beaten like that. So I'm thinking that's a good place to end his career when he's being beaten in the ring in a way that we've never seen him being beaten before. So to bring him back, it's almost a situation where, well, we already saw him lose, and what the story is indicating to us is this is Brock Lesnar who clearly now is past his prime. So if you bring him back and he loses again, it doesn't help Oba because we've already established at this point he's just beating up an old Brock Lesnar who's not who he used to be. I mean, you saw with the first match with the F5, Oba just got up out of the F5 like it's not. We've never seen, to my knowledge, I've never seen anybody get up out of an F5 like that. So the story that they're telling is that Brock Lesnar clearly at this point is past his prime. He's not as dominant and powerful as used to be. So for the company to do a rematch, it doesn't make sense for Oba to be past his prime Brock Lesnar a second time. I mean, you're not really getting anything out of it. But then also to have Brock Lesnar win, which is what they did, now it hurts Oba because we've established Brock Lesnar is past his prime, and you just got beat by a past his prime Brock Lesnar that you beat at WrestleMania. So from a story standpoint, it made no sense. And also my problem from a story standpoint, it's if you were going to do a fake retirement for Brock Lesnar, at least give a reason for why Brock Lesnar decided to change his mind and to come back, because that was a very emotional moment. It looked like Brock Lesnar really was questioning whether or not it was time to hang it up and to retire. So he just came out of nowhere, attacked Oba, and then they had the rematch, and there was no build up or story behind it. So that's the part that also made no sense to me from a booking perspective. That if you were going to do a rematch where Brock Lesnar decides he's not going to retire, at least do one promo where Brock Lesnar explains why he's not retiring. Ex- have him explain why he was so emotional at WrestleMania night, because he never officially came out and said that he was going to retire. So maybe he wasn't thinking about retiring. Maybe he was just emotional because he realized he's past his prime. He's questioning whether or not he still has it. And then you could build a story around Brock Lesnar wants a rematch because he wants to prove to himself that he still has it. But
Uh,
they didn't build any storyline around the rematch. We just had the rematch. Oba lost, and that was it. So I just I don't understand why the booking has gotten as bad as it has in pro wrestling. Obviously, was not like this. When we were really invested in the product during the Monday Night Wars. So I don't know what it is with pro wrestling and why the booking has gotten that bad, because the stuff I'm saying, I think that's fairly straightforward wrestling booking. That's typically how you would book a rematch or any type of feud. You'd have a storyline, a build up, something to get fans actually invested in the story and in the characters. I think with WWE stuff just happens, and then there's no reason for why it's happening. There's no reason to be invested in it. It just happens.
Absolutely, the way it gets worse. So I don't know if you picked up on this, but Obafemi just recently won the King of the Ring tournament, maybe like a couple of weeks ago. And naturally, when you win the King of the Ring, you get a automatic title shot of a champion of your choosing at SummerSlam. So Oba comes out after the Monday night after he wins the King of the Ring, and he's getting into his spiel about who he wants to challenge, whether it's going to be Roman Reigns or I guess now it would be Sami Zayn, because Sami Zayn defeated Cody Rhodes. And Brock interrupts him and challenges him, or he beats him up first. Brock interrupts him. They get into an exchange. Brock beats him up. Obafemi goes to the backstage and tells Adam Pearce, who's the on-screen general manager, that I want Brock Lesnar in a match. I'm not worried about my championship match. I want Brock Lesnar. So they set up a Hell in a Cell between Brock Lesnar and Obafemi, which is probably going to be the trilogy with Oba going over. But it's like, well, why did you have him win the King of the Ring? Like, who just foregoes their championship to have to
Exactly.
fight somebody?
But that's what I mean about the storytelling. So if you wanted to conclude that feud in a trilogy match after Oba wins the King of the Ring, put the belt on Brock Lesnar.
Exactly.
So that's what I mean. But the booking doesn't make any sense. And also, what doesn't make sense to me, it's why is Brock Lesnar attacking Oba now? Initially, when they were building up the rivalry, Oba got over from Brock Lesnar every single time.
Every single time, every segment.
So I'm like, well, if you wanted a competitive trilogy, why would you initially sell the build up to the match as Oba just completely dominating Brock Lesnar and then dominated him at WrestleMania? So just there's no consistency in the storytelling. The psychology makes no sense in terms of the type of stories that they're doing. But and like we talked about, I think they really wrote themselves into a hole where they pushed Oba, I think, further along than they really wanted him to be at this point.
Yep.
Because it's obvious they don't want him to be champion yet or even contending for the championship belt, but they've already built him up to where that's the position he should be in the company. And it doesn't help that he's extremely over with the fans,
Extremely, extremely.
because
The
they
way
could put the belt on him right now and the fans would be behind it.
and the way when you talked about this, he's got people of all colors, races, creeds doing the overstrut.
Yeah.
I mean, he is so it's a beautiful thing to watch, because like me and Dwayne, we grew up watching wrestling, and we always talk about the golden era peak, because it's like once you give us a taste of what pro wrestling should be like, this is what we expect. So it's like seeing the Stone Cold era pops, The Rock, Undertaker, seeing that, and then seeing what wrestling is now. It's that nostalgia that we have with Oba, who is just organically over.
And that's really hard to do because the business wasn't as exposed during that time period as it is
Hmm.
now. So it's very difficult as a wrestler to build an organic connection with the fans when the company keeps telling you all of this is fake. Don't believe any of what you're seeing in the ring, because when we were up watching pro wrestling, most people knew this isn't real. It is scripted to a certain degree. There's certain things that are happening here that aren't real. But the companies weren't deliberately telling us, "Hey, this is all fake." And the thing we all joke about, it's how seriously would we have taken the Stone Cold and Vince McMahon feud if after every Monday night they went backstage and were taking pictures with each other and putting the pictures up on social media, talking about how great it was to work together? So that was a time period where the product still sold itself as being a serious product, where feuds still felt serious because they were being sold as being serious. Now everything is completely exposed. Now nothing's taken seriously to the point where it doesn't even make sense that you'd have wrestlers have these really vicious feuds and then go backstage and hug and take pictures and talk about how great it was to work with each other and how great it was to put the other wrestler over. So it's very hard in an environment like that to establish that type of an organic connection with fans. So the fact that Oba is able to do something like that, to me, I think it speaks volumes for the type of talent and abilities that he has. Because, yeah, like I said, I think a lot of fans watching might take it for granted now, but it's not easy being over like that in the current environment that we have in professional wrestling.